and welcome to the No Hair, All Heart podcast. I am your very bald host, Mookie Spitz, and the one with all the heart today is Chaplain Sy Alli. And I see that you're a little compromised in the hair department, but you are not compromised in your resume, which is impressive. Military man, pro wrestler, actor. There's a lot of things that you have done and you could share in terms of some of your experience. And now you have a new book out, which I would love to talk to you about as well. Out of the Storm. Welcome, Chaplain Sy Alli.
Thank you, Mookie. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Open it up. Open your heart on the No Hair, All Heart podcast. What brings you here? And let me read your bald mind. I understand, based on doing a little bit of homework, that you have turned some tough times personally into tremendous opportunities for personal growth and development, that you're eager to share what you've learned for our listeners who might also be going through their own tough times. And you want to share some of that inspiration. And you found God along the way too, which
yes,
I think is also an important component of this journey.
It sure is.
So let our listeners have it. What do we need to know about the chaplain that can maybe change some lives for those listening?
A lot of people think that I've led several lives, and I think I have, Mookie. At the end of the day, I mean, I went to the Air Force pretty much right out of high school. As a matter of fact, I spoke for a Veterans Day event up in San Jose earlier today, and it just brought back memories of my military stint. I grew up in Western PA, just north of Pittsburgh, a little town called Farrell, PA, and Hickory, PA. And I was a dreamer, Mookie. I wanted to be a pilot. I wanted to be a superhero. I was a big fan of professional wrestling. And I went into the Air Force, but I kind of did it backwards. I should have gotten my college work in first and then gone in and possibly have taken the officer's route because I really wanted to fly, but I didn't. So I went in and then I didn't get my college courses in until later. But by then I was already a security police, which is called security forces now, which is the law enforcement and security arm of the Air Force. And then while I was in the Air Force, I was at the old Stapleton Airport in Denver, and I met these professional wrestlers. It was Ricky Steamboat, Tony Atlas, the Iron Sheik, and I was a power lifter at the time. So I was about 200. I was pretty strong. And it was a big snowstorm, and I went into this bar, and there these guys were. And I had saw them the night before. We got into this conversation, and Tony Atlas was like, man, you might be pretty, well suited for professional wrestling. And I didn't think about it at the time. But when I got back to Germany, it was like the bug hit. And I ended up getting out, and then I became a professional wrestler. I had so much fun, Mookie, in professional wrestling. There is nothing, and I mean, there is nothing that comes close to the good times and the fun that I had and the characters and, just being able to do multiple characters and do it to a point where, I was actually pretty good. I didn't make it to the WWE.
Right.
Yes, this was old school. This was this was still WWF then. But I stayed on the smaller circuit for about 15 years, and I had a lot of concussions because I was a high flyer. I took a lot of chances, man. I thought I was invincible. And after about 12 concussions in about 2001, I went back to my home in Alexandria, Virginia, and my doctor gave me an ultimatum. He was like, if you come in my office one more time with a concussion, he was like, Sy, I treat football players. They have helmets. You don't have a helmet in that ring and you're bashing your head. He was like, you can die. And then unfortunately, I had to leave wrestling premature when I was just starting. There wasn't much social media back then. So there was fan clubs and wrestling magazines, which they featured me in a wrestling magazine, and it was really, I got a great response. But the concussions had cut it short.
What was your ring name?
Oh, I wrestled as Cy Youngblood. I wrestled as Jumpin' Jack Flash. I wrestled as the Chocolate Playboy. That was a lot of fun. I threw Hershey's Kisses out to the women. And
Nice.
then I finished my career as Sergeant Cy Youngblood, which was more in line with my military background. So I was able to just,
That is fantastic.
I
So
had
what
so much
years are we
fun, Mookie.
talking about?
I started I started in Germany. We did some shows over there, and then I came back to the US to Connecticut to actually be trained and actually really learn how to take falls, how to do moves, how to do ring psychology. So I started in 86 and went to about 2000, early 2002, I believe, is when the last concussion hit, and it was just time for me to put it away. I didn't want to, but it was time to put that away. But
Sick run. In
it was a
wrestling,
great run.
15.
I still got friends that are still doing it. I have friends that are still doing it, but they don't, they don't go all out and take the bumps that they used to, but they still do it. You have to be smart, but I had a great run. And through wrestling, I got some, opportunities in Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh was doing a lot of movies back in the 90s. And I met this casting director, and she was like, hey, you'd be great for, So all of a sudden, I was an extra in Silence of the Lambs. But I had long hair, Mookie. I had like gold braids. But there was a scene in the movie where these cops and SWAT teams go up through the elevator. They're trying to get to Hannibal Lecter. So it was a very visible part, and they wanted me to do it, but they wanted me to cut my ponytail. And I'm like, well, am I going to get a SAG card? Am I going to get a speaking line? And they said, no, but it's visible. And I told them no. So they got mad, and they put me in an obscure scene with Jodie Foster at the Pittsburgh airport. So I had to, I'm like, look, if you're not going to, give me a speaking line, I'm not going to cut my hair. This is for wrestling. So I stood my ground, and unfortunately I didn't get that visible role, but Lorenzo's Oil with Nick Nolte and Susan Sarandon and Sir Peter Ustinov, Dead and Alive, the story of Gus, it was a Tony Danza, Samuel Jackson movie, Criminal Justice with Rosie Perez. So I did a handful of movies in Pittsburgh.
How fun is that? So
That was,
pro wrestler
yeah, it was pretty,
under various monikers, and then some
yes.
movie extra roles. That's terrific.
Yeah, never got my SAG card. Maybe one day I'll get it, but it was a great run. I had so much fun. I did a lot of travel, a lot of radio shows promoting, the promotions I was working with. So that's how I believe I got my speaking chops, and that's how I became a speaker. I think it was through wrestling, because I was pretty shy as a kid. But I kind of, got out of my shell when I got to the military, and then the wrestling just put me over the top, man. I had no fear of speaking to anybody at that point.
Yeah, that'll do it. That'll do it to a shy kid. Put Cy Youngblood in the ring and let him loose.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had really long
Good.
hair. I had a hairstylist who I had wild hair. It was, I'm bald now, but I really had long hair. It was bleach blonde. So it was a really unique look. And I had a ball at it, Mookie. I really did. That was the most fun I've had in my life, bar none.
Terrific. So after this amazing pro wrestler career with some moonlighting in film, what was your next step? Where do you go from there?
When I got out the service, I actually drove a cab in Pittsburgh for a few years. But when I was driving a cab, I was a witness to a car accident. And there was an insurance investigator who wanted to meet with me. And we met, and I gave him the description of what I witnessed in the car accident. And it was very descriptive. And he was like, man, let me ask, were you military? And I said, yeah. He said, I thought so. He was like, you ever consider being a private investigator? And I said, yeah, I thought about it, but I didn't know how to go about it. So he was with, I think, Allstate, and he did accident reconstruction. So he would go and he taught me. This guy was phenomenal. He taught me how to do skip tracing. Back then you didn't have access to databases that come so freely now. You had
No
to go to
DNA.
courthouses and you had to, yeah, you had to pay, just to get police reports and that. But that's how I got my start in investigative work. And then I eventually ended up in Washington, D.C., and I became a criminal defense investigator. So I was working for criminal defense attorneys, and that was 7 years doing major felony cases. So I honestly, even though we could talk about the protection thing, but my foundation was really investigative work. And I was very thorough. My reports were very detailed. So that was how the career eventually, I got burned out though. It was 7 years doing these cases, Mookie. The last case I had it was devastating. It was a gentleman who was accused of abusing kids in a child kids home. And my attorney, took the case, and I was like, I don't know if I can do this, because I went to interview him, Mookie, and there was just you never you never want to judge, but when I was talking to him, he couldn't look me in the eye talking, and I was like, you got to be able to look at me when we're talking, and I just had that feeling that he had done this, and we ended up losing the case, and I told that was when I did a timeout. I'm like, I can't do this. This is too much. I mean, I was drinking a whole lot. I was an alcoholic. I mean, I talked about that in the book. I was definitely an alcoholic. Never really, explored drugs and things like that, but I was definitely a big vodka guy. So I ended up getting out of that, and I got an opportunity to do a protection detail job. And then once I did that, we were talking about the .com crash. So I was like the guy who you brought in to help handle, these downsizing and these office closures. So I got the nickname King of the .com closures. And that's how my protection career really got going. And once I started traveling, the global thing blew up, and I found myself traveling all over the world. And then I became a university lecturer talking about, personal and dignitary protection, advanced planning, and hostile environments and that. So I lectured at quite a few universities in the Northeast. So, things really had developed, but I don't, I really wasn't, I don't think I was happy. I got married, I had kids. My dad passed away in 2005, and he was my best friend. And I lost him. I lost my father-in-law, who was a Presbyterian minister, like 4 years later. So the two men that I cherished in my life were gone. It felt like the drop of a hat. And then I just went into a tailspin. To get away, and my getaway was just work. I would take long jobs, 2 or 3 month long, jobs overseas or anywhere in the US. And I just basically checked out of family life. And then I ultimately got divorced in 2014. And then is when I really spiraled out in
Let's put a
Denver.
pin on it for just 1 second, because the one thing
Yes.
I find most fascinating is you're a person of almost fated circumstance. So you're in the military and you happen to meet some pro wrestler mofos who take you under
Yes.
their wing. Next thing you
Yes.
know, you are Cy Youngblood, etc., pro wrestler. And that became a 15 plus year career for you. So it was
It was.
circumstantial, but you put everything you got into it. Then you got these movie spots that you were able to do. And then again, pure kind of fated circumstance, you witnessed an accident. The person who's responsible for describing and writing it up recognizes your discipline and attention to detail. And then you find yourself doing private eye kind of stuff. And that in turn leads you to the next phase of your career. And you cycled up that way to giving talks and being engaged in all these different ways. So it's almost like life is a river. And
It
instead of
is.
swimming against the stream, you just got in the boat and you paddled your way forward, and the stream kind of took you almost where it wanted to take you. Do you get that kind of feeling when you look back?
Yeah. Oh, I do. I do, Mookie, but I was very nomadic. I just couldn't sit still. Even, I was married twice, divorced twice. My first marriage, I met my wife. And then when I became a professional wrestler, she wanted me to stay in the military. She was like, "You're really moving up the chain here." She was like, "That's, but I wanted to wrestle. And that's how
Yeah.
we got divorced because I wanted to be a wrestler. And then I got married a second time. And then when you're doing protection work, and I was a contractor, it's feast or famine. Either sometimes your phone doesn't ring and it drives you insane, or your phone is ringing constantly and you're on the road. I'm waking up at night not knowing what city I'm at or what country I'm in. Um, but my grandmother, I ran away as a kid. I took a bus ride, and my grandmother said, because my grandfather was Arabic, he's from Yemen. And she said, he is going to be the Bedouin of the family. And she could not have been true. Because Mookie, I couldn't sit still. And at the expense of my marriages, when I got divorced, I took a job with Dixie Brands, which was a cannabis company in Colorado, in Denver. And I became the first corporate security director in the cannabis industry. And what should have been,
Yeah.
yes. I mean, I took that job. I left Ohio. I was in New Albany, Ohio. I got divorced, and I was really, really Mookie. But professionally, becoming the first security executive in that space and being responsible for everybody's lives in that facility, it was it was amazing. I mean, I've gotten interviewed by New York Times. They were filming Pot Barons of Colorado, and my CEO and COO were featured in that. So there's cameras, and I didn't want to be around cameras because all my colleagues from Washington, D.C. was like, "Man, you're making a huge mistake. This is going to just derail your career." And it ended up taking me up another level, but I was suffering. I was horribly depressed, but I didn't want to let the employees down. I wanted to be, at the top of my game, making sure my security policies and procedures were good and we didn't have any problems. But when I would go home at night, Mookie, I didn't even recognize who was looking back at me in the mirror. So it was a tale of two sides. One who stepped up professionally, but when he got home, I was just a mess, a horrible
But
mess.
sounds
And I
like the
didn't want
river of
anybody
life
to
was
know.
was taking you. The river of life was taking you, and you were jumping on different boats as they kind of became available to you. You were restless, and you just kept going. But
Yeah. And then,
inside, you're suffering spiritually. It seemed.
oh, Mookie, and I didn't want to tell anybody. And I was terrified that somebody would spot something. So I did. It was exhausting to try to be upbeat and act like that there was nothing wrong when I was deeply, deeply in a bad situation. And then I picked April 18th, 2015. That was the day that I was going to take my life. And we worked Saturdays, not the office staff, but the cooks, the chefs who made the chocolates and the edibles and all that work Saturday. So I would work Saturday too. And I waited that day and, saw everybody leave. I made sure this facility was secured. I was in my little office that had a whole bank of cameras, because that thing was protected like it was a pharmaceutical company. Everything had to be, on the up and up as far as security safeguards. And I took my Glock out, put a round in the chamber. I looked behind me and I saw my kids' pictures, and I wanted to move them because I was like thinking, I was analyzing blood splatter, how long it would take for somebody to come in here and find my body because it's a Saturday. So I figured my CEO was the only one that had a key, and he probably didn't know where it was. So it would be a few days before they found me. I was thinking about doing it in a hotel. I thought I was going to do it. I had a apartment share with my roommate, but my roommate had a prior roommate that committed suicide. So I didn't want to do that to him. So I ended up just was going to do it at the office, which would have been horrible, Mookie. It would have been horrible because cannabis was new. Colorado had just legalized it for recreational use. And then your head security guy you find dead in the office. It would have just been a horrible situation. But divinity stepped in, and I was able to walk out of there. And I didn't know what had happened. Everything, I put the pistol in my mouth, Mookie. I had my finger on the trigger. I already had a round in the chamber. And then when I thought I put the last bit of pressure on, everything in the office went completely dark. So my first thought was, oh, okay, I did it. I didn't feel much pain. There's no air. I can't hear anything. It's completely still. And then all of a sudden I felt a presence in wherever I was, Mookie. I didn't know I was in the office. I thought I was dead. Maybe this was part of the process of dying and going through this. But I felt two individuals in this space with me. One was like crouched down in a kneeling position on my left side, and there was somebody off my right shoulder with a hand. It felt like a hand on my shoulder. And the aroma immediately told me that that was my father and my father-in-law. And they were there. I think God really sent them there, Mookie, to try to pull me out of that. And my father-in-law, my dad, I can hear him just like it's a mumble, but it sounded like he was very upset, and it's like, this is crazy. And my father-in-law asked me a question, which I'll never forget. He was like, son, do you realize what you're going to leave behind in your wake? And before I could even answer him, like an old time projector screen dropped down, and I could hear the reel to reel. And I watched my life from being born all the way up through watching myself take my life. I'm looking at it, Mookie, on a screen. I'm sweating. I think I am. I mean, I'm like, where am I? What's going on? Is somebody playing a heck of a prank on me? And then I watched myself take my life. I saw my body slump over. A couple of days later, they found the key. They came in, and it was just heart-wrenching. And then my family found out, and then I'm watching my kids go through counseling, and then at once both of my dad and my father-in-law is like, is this what you really want? And I couldn't muster the strength to even answer, but I think I muttered no. And then at that point, all the lights came back on. I watched every camera bin light up one by one, one by one. I can hear the HVAC running again. And 5 hours had elapsed, Mookie, because I started this at 4. When those lights came back on, it was 9 p.m. I had a bottle of Grey Goose vodka. I never popped the cork. I didn't do any drugs, so there's no reason for me to believe that I was going through some bad trip. And I left. Well, I noticed that I had urinated on myself. So I'm looking. I didn't want to go out my office door. I'm like, okay, I'm afraid. I'm looking at my cameras to see if anybody's in that building. And fortunately, I had some workout clothes. So I wiped the seat down. I got redressed, and I left. And fortunately for me, my roommate also had a place in Cheyenne. He was there that weekend. And I sat at the couch, and I was like, what happened? What was this? And I didn't realize, I could not fathom that God would approach me in this way, because I wasn't, even though I had a father-in-law who was a Presbyterian minister, I went to church. I never considered myself overly spiritual or a man of faith. I struggled with that. And then 5 years later, I end up in Seattle, and I got a DUI on March 1st, 2020. I got locked up. I got arrested. And I told my friends when they came to get me, I said, I'm never drinking again. And they looked at me, Mookie. I know they wanted to just laugh in my face, and they would have been rightful to do that. But that day, I stopped drinking. I picked up my mom's Bible, and everything changed. God had approached me and told me, hey, that was me. That was me. I've got plans for you. You're not smart enough to know. So yeah, that was me. I want you to start writing. And then that point, I started writing, which is now the book, Out of the Storm.
That's an amazing story. Usually when people are in extreme conditions, they have their life flash before their eyes. Usually it's retroactive, right? For you, it was like the possible future had you gone through with that and the implications of it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
It
fascinating.
was. I mean,
yeah.
it
Yeah.
was, Mookie. And again, I continued to drink, but after that day, I never ever had any inclination to take my life ever. I was so scared. And I fortunately for me, I didn't eat that day because I had a nervous stomach, but I'm sure it would have been messier in there because I lost all control of any sort of body functions. I mean, I was in that in my office or wherever I was transported to for 5 hours, and I had to clean myself up. And I was like, man, wonder if somebody's watching me. I didn't know, but once I drifted up to the Pacific Northwest, and then that's when things happened. I stopped drinking. For some reason, I wanted to go to a seminary school, but I didn't have the money, so I took online courses, and then I looked at chaplaincy, and I ended up getting my degree in chaplaincy, and then I started working at a cancer treatment facility in Puyallup, Washington, just west or east of Tacoma and just south of Seattle, and I did that for 3 years. So that's how the
Awesome.
chaplaincy, that's how the ministry thing took off. And I haven't looked back, Mookie. I have not looked back.
So what kind of work do you apply yourself? I mean, after this variety show of a career where you're zigging and zagging, you're picking up lots of skills. You bottomed out though in terms of your own personal values and connection to yourself and the world. And then you have this revelation, this epiphany, and then you decide to give your life to not just becoming a chaplain, but helping others. How specifically have you helped others? What have you been doing?
Well, I think once the book, I wrote an article first. I wrote the article and I put it on social media, and it really caught people off guard. And then one of my minister mentors, Reverend Carmen Cox Harwell, she's a Presbyterian minister, just recently retired up in Cleveland, Ohio. I shared that with two ministers, her and my cousin, who is an African Methodist minister in Stanton, Virginia, I believe. And I shared it with them first, only them. And Reverend Carmen said, "Hey, you're not done writing, are you? Because I just was going to write this as an article." But she put the seeds to say, you need to keep writing. You have a story that you need to tell, a story that, you might not see it now, but your story is going to help others. And so I kept writing. And then I left Pacific Northwest in 2021, late 2021, to go back to Pittsburgh to start doing a documentary, which was Project Resurrection. That was going to be the name of the documentary. But I really didn't have the money, Mookie. So while in Pittsburgh, I got an opportunity to work at a high school as a youth mentor. Remember the movie The Breakfast Club? That's how it was. Like Saturday morning at this urban high school, myself and a couple other people go in because these kids are wayward. They're skipping classes. They're doing whatever. So they make them go to school on Saturday morning. So we go there, and the kids are completely tuned out. And my friend, Tawana Gatewood, she was like, "Sy, you need to tell these kids about your story." I said, "Really? You think so?" And I did. I told them about my suicide attempt, Mookie. And then all of a sudden, their hoodies came off, their sunglasses came off, and they were all ears. So we had their attention. And then the floodgates opened from these kids because, mind you, this was 2021. We're just coming off of the pandemic, just coming off of the closures and that. So these kids hadn't been to school. This particular high school had lost 4 students to gunfire, to gun death. So these kids were reeling. They needed somebody to be able to understand. And unbeknownst to me, my story resonated with them, and that opened everything up. And they, one young lady who was I think she was a sophomore, rolled up her sleeve, Mookie, and showed me the cut marks on her arm. And my heart was just, and so we had an opportunity to really talk to these kids. And next thing you know, they wanted us there during the weekdays. And that was my first foray. Now, granted, I coach my son's sports teams, but the first time that I ever opened up to young people about my own inequities, my suicide attempt, and they welcomed it with open arms. So something Mookie was driving me to California. I don't know what it was, but I mean, Pittsburgh is my home, but I just knew I wasn't going to be there for a long period of time. So I had some friends who run a small security firm, and they wanted me to come out to be their executive director, but they didn't have the money to put me up. So they bought a futon for me, and I lived in my office in Prunedale, California for like 2 months. And then things fell apart with them. And they were going to give me a ticket to go back to Pittsburgh or back to Washington. I told them I'm staying here. And I found this facility, a homeless shelter in Marina, California, called the Veterans Transition Center. And it's a homeless shelter for veterans. And I went there. And Mookie, I thought that was the low point. I was like, God, what did I do? What did I do? And God said, hey, you're a chaplain, right? I said, well, yes. He was like, you got a ready-made audience. You got all these veterans who are battling things that you aren't even prepared to. So he was like, bone up and become the minister that you said you were going to be. So I started working with the veterans while I was homeless, Mookie. I didn't have any money, no car, no job. I figured, okay, this is it for me. I'm going to be homeless the rest of my life. This is it. And I ended up getting an office to counsel the veterans. I had a housemate who was a retired Army Ranger, Mookie. He spent several tours between Iraq and Afghanistan. And he was a chef here locally in Marina, California. He worked at a Greek restaurant, and he would come home late at night. I'd wait up for him because he brought me gyros, and we would sit and talk. And I asked him, it came out. I just said, you know what? How many lives do you think you took? And he looked at me with this very solemn look, and he was like, you know what? I became so immune to it. I was more concentrated on my team and making sure that I didn't lose any of them. So I had no problems taking out, the other team's lives. And he opened up to me, and I found out he tried to take his life, but the gun malfunctioned. There was other veterans that I would talk to. One was abused as a kid. He was an intel analyst at Fort Meade in Maryland. So I'm meeting all these different. One veteran he went to West Point grad, Mookie, helicopter pilot, flew CIA missions all over Iraq and Afghanistan, was living in a van in Salinas, California. His service animal was a live chicken in a van. He looked like Charles Manson. He came to our facility. He was dirty. We had to make him get a shower. And then when he got cleaned up, he opened up. So I was meeting all these different veterans that came to this one facility in Marina, California. And I had a roommate who was 80 years old. He had multiple DUIs. He had a car. He had a 2016 Nissan. And he couldn't drive it. So I was driving him to his appointments, and I answered an ad for a company called Alevo. They were looking for youth coaches. And I told Brad, my housemate, I'm like, I want to apply for it, but I don't know how I'm going to get back and forth. He was like, take my car. He was like, you've been taking me all around. You take it. So I took the car. I got interviewed with this company. And then the rest is history. I'm still with this company, Alevo. I'm in school districts all over Monterey County. I'm now a site success manager. So I deal with all the principals. Alevo offers curriculum for social emotional learning through sports. So we're there for the lunch recess. We're there for after school programs. And I got promoted pretty quickly. And now I've got this expanded area. Brad, before he left to go back to Southern California, he was like, take me to the DMV. And I didn't know what he wanted to do. So we go to the DMV. He gifts me his car. He gives me the car. He was like, you have done so much for so many people. He was like, here. And he gave me the car. And it was fate. It was fate. I live now, I'm in Carmel. I rent a room in Carmel, which is much worse places to be, Mookie, than Carmel, California. And I have this large territory of schools that I cover. And I still minister. I minister to personal care homes. I still minister to veterans. And I'm a mentor to all these young coaches and all these kids who look at me, Mookie, as their superhero. Because I've still got the physique. I'm coming up on 65. So they think I'm their superhero. So life could not be any better right now. It really couldn't. I hope the book gets turned into a movie. I've got a movie script for it, but man, it's been incredible. I lacked faith. I just thought, man, I'm homeless. This is it. And just, Mookie, that was a foundation for me to build with these other veterans and helping them get through their ordeals. And meanwhile, they were helping me by just letting me be there for them and letting me help work them through. So it's been phenomenal, man. I had no idea I would be a chaplain, and I had no idea I'd be working in all these schools. I got 26 schools right now. By the end, after the first of the year, I'll have 31. So basically, I take the barometer of the principals, see how they like our coaches, how they like what we're doing, and I get a chance to work with principals, school staff. I can't complain, Mookie. From all that to where we're at now, it's been an interesting run, to say the least.
Yeah, it's almost like there's two Sy Allis. There's the pre-rapture one. All right, is like, again, you're going downstream, you're jumping boats. It's very circumstantial, and you're always leaping on opportunities. But all these opportunities were all about you. Like, how
Right.
can I maximize my career? How can I be famous? How can I make more money? And then
Right.
after the rapture, it's all about everybody else. And that has given you a sense of self-satisfaction and spirituality.
Could not describe it any better, Mookie. You were very intuitive. I mean, yeah. I mean, I would chase after the biggest salary. And it's not about that now. I had an opportunity to go work for an oil and gas company in Houston for triple what I'm making now. And I didn't even feel right doing it. I told them no. They're like, really? You would pass this up? A senior vice president role of global security and risk management? And it didn't even feel right for me, Mookie. It really didn't. I said, no, I'm just going to stay where I'm at. And I was moving around, and I lived in Denver, Seattle. I mean, California, the Central Coast. This is home now. I mean, I'm going home for Christmas to Pittsburgh, but I love it out here. It's snowing back there. It never goes.
It's your same kind of manic energy. You know what I mean? You're driving it, you're pouring it on, you're giving it 120%. But now it's not just about
Absolutely.
you; it's about the kids and the value that you
Yes.
provide.
And even my fellow employees. I mean, I'm there to lift them up, because one of my supervisors was like, well, Sy, you got a 5-year plan. I'm like, 5 years? I'm like, man, I just found out I have to apply for Medicare. I'm turning 65 on Christmas. I don't know what 5 years is going to look like, but I'm here at the behest of everybody else. I'm trying to help everybody else because I've seen pretty much everything there is to see. And I want to see these young kids, not just the kids in school, but our employees are, Mookie, they're really young. Our youth coaches are right out of high school. So they're younger than my youngest child, which is Sy the fourth, who's 25. My oldest is 41. So my fellow employees are like my own kids. So I love what I do. I love this area. The weather is pretty temperate. It doesn't get too cold. Carmel doesn't get too hot. I mean, most houses don't have air conditioner here. And I'm looking back on the news, seeing it's snowing and 26 degrees in Pittsburgh. I'm like, really? If I had it like that, my family would be coming out here to see me. It wouldn't be the other way around.
Yeah, I'm from Chicago. I lived in New York. I got friends who are saying we got blasted, and I'm like 75 and sunny here in California. We got our wildfires and earthquakes and
Where
riots,
are you
but
at in California? Where are you at?
yeah, I'm in Orange County, right between
Oh,
LA and San Diego. Yeah, yeah. And I moved here last year from New York City, and I'm happy I did it. And it's awesome talking to you because again, it's like it's such a journey of going from the inside to the outside. It's all about Sy to now it's all about the kids and the value that you could bring folks. Can you tell us a little bit more about the model? So you say you got 25, 30 schools. You guys do coaching. How does this actually work for the kids?
Well, after school programs are really big and they're very vital out here. Up here where I'm at in Monterey County, ag is huge business. Ag is really the number one, generator of financing out here. So a lot of these parents, Mookie, work really long hours in these ag fields. So these after school programs have become very important. So the monies, Alevo, there's other companies that do after school programs. We're in classrooms. Our coaches have to have, I think, 48 hours college credits to be in classrooms, or you have to take an IA exam, to make sure you're qualified to even be in a classroom. So we do lunch recess because, schools are finding out you got a couple of hours for lunch recess. There's nothing structured for these kids. So they're just out ripping and running on the blacktop or in the fields. There's behavioral referrals that come in. There's injury, incidents. So our coaches are there for lunch recess. We have a curriculum, we have games. They're sports games, but they're all based off of social emotional learning, sportsmanship, being able to work together as a team. And then we're also in classrooms. We have our enrichment studies, our homework studies. We're just an extension of the school day. So our coaches would get kids at 3 o'clock, and we'd have them till 5:30 or 6. For lunch hour, we're in there from like 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock. So we're in schools. So I started as a coach at Mission Park Elementary in Salinas. And then I got promoted. So they gave me, this program started really blossoming into other school districts. So I had other school districts as well. It's vital. And I believe it's really big, because kids, if you let your kids just go home, I mean, what are they doing? They're on their computer, they're watching
It
TV.
sounds like your organization provides supplemental service to the state schools at
Yes,
lunch, after school, and it's mostly agricultural communities. So it's the children of. Okay.
we're all over the state. We're down in your area. We're down San Diego. We're in Imperial. We're in Palm Springs. We're in
Okay.
LA, San Diego, San Francisco, Sacramento. We're all over the state. We just recently expanded to Texas. So I do believe Alevo will be, I think it'll be a national company at some point, just because of the curriculum and the work that's put into this to get accreditation and, with the schools and that. So we're growing. But my region is predominantly Monterey and San Benito County, which is all ag. It's all ag, Mookie. So,
Where does the funding come from to be able to
the,
sponsor
the,
the counselors, the organization, the whole infrastructure?
the funding comes through the state. The state has allocated X amount of funds, say for after school, lunch recess, and the big sale on our lunch recess is to help eliminate behavioral referrals and injuries. And we have, because we track those. When we get these lunch recess programs, we actually track them, and we're able to show the school district, hey, our coaches are here now. Here's your numbers. Your disciplinary referrals are going down. Your injuries and visits to the nurse's office is going down. And that's how we're able to expand. So that's it. Really is. It is.
It's
It is.
supplementing the usual public school system with lunch and maybe recess and after school, so the kids stay focused, they're under supervision with people who know what they're doing, and keeps kids off the streets. And people are working 2-3 jobs now just to make ends meet, if they can even do that. And the kids are
Absolutely.
on their own, right? And it's good to
They
give
are,
them
Mookie.
structure.
Yeah, with no structure. So I think parents are now seeing the importance of programs like these and the value that these programs bring. Yet, we were concerned, maybe this administration was going to pull some of the funding for California, but it hasn't happened, knock on wood. So we still have the funding to be able to, put our coaches and pay our coaches what their wages and that. And so it's good. I never thought I would work with young kids. Now, in Pittsburgh, it was with high school. My first time in a classroom, it was with kindergarten, transitional kindergarten, and first grade. And I'm sitting there, I have short sleeves on, and it felt like a scene out of Kindergarten Cop with Arnold. I'm sitting in the classroom, and the kids are looking at me really wide-eyed. And one kid raises their hand. I was like, yeah. She said, Coach Sy, how old are you? Mookie, I made the cardinal sin of saying, take a guess. The first number that came at me was 100. The second was 86,
you're
and then
looking
one
good.
who
You're like me. Like me. I'm I cracked 60.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
still got some guns.
absolutely.
We got to keep it going on,
I
right?
will never again ask the kids to take a guess at my age, but I fell in love with those kids. And being a chaplain, I've got to walk that fine line through school, church and state. But I was able to help a lot of kids who had mental things going on. And the principal looked at me. She was like, you got to be kidding. I got all these trained counselors here, and you're able to get the information out of these kids. Who are you? Then we sat down and talked. I'm like, look, I'm a chaplain. So I'm a counselor. I may not be a school counselor, but I'm a life counselor. So she was like, well, you do whatever you need to do. And I told the principal, I was like, look, I got to be careful. I'm not going to be, talking scriptures or praying with the kids because I don't want to get kicked out of here. But I think mentorship, Mookie, is a form of ministry. I mean, when you really look at it, you can say, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. You're Yoda. You're Yoda for these kids.
I like that. I like it. So that's where I'm at right now.
Sy Yoda.
Yes, I'm going to write that down. I'm going to tell my coworkers. Mookie named me Sy Yoda.
Tell us a little bit about your relationship with God. I've had a lot of guests, over the past year or so on various podcasts, and we've talked religion here and there. But you are a man of faith, and you're a man of personal rapture and kind of transcendence. You're on the brink of suicide. You have this vision. You have the presence of family there. You have this, not even a premonition, but just this, you literally described the screen rolling down and the film in the canister and seeing your future life if you do pull the trigger. So it's like Pulp Fiction, it's like God got involved. So tell us about God for you. How is it a personal Jesus that you feel? Is it philosophical? Yeah. How do you look at God in your life right now?
I look at it as all the above because I have to give him the credit, Mookie, because God doesn't save everybody. Unfortunately, he just doesn't. I had a conversation with God. I was a huge fan of Anthony Bourdain, Kitchen Confidential. I was a huge fan of his. And when he took his life, I was devastated. And I asked God, I'm like, well, why did you spare me and you took him? God was like, look, I purposed you. You are purposed. And I didn't dare ask, well, was Anthony not purposed? I mean, because Anthony had a great run and was all over the world, but he was like, I have you purposed. So here's what I want you to do. At first, Mookie, I thought I was destined to be a pastor in church. But one of my mentors, Reverend Carmen Cox Harwell said, hey, look, she said, Sy, there are several forms of ministry. Don't just be focused on thinking that you're going to be
I love that. That's
right.
The real icing on the cake here is that you're practicing what you preach, which is giving that mentorship and support, sharing your life story and sharing the sense of rebirth and inspiration and giving, right? So you give to the kids to instill in them a spirit of giving rather than just taking.
I think that's my life mission right now. I really do believe that. My church, one thing about being in that shelter is there was a ministry that would come to the Veterans Transition Center, and one of the gentlemen introduced me to the pastor. It's called His Grace Ministries International. And I started going while I was homeless. And so I became a fixture of this church. Now it's over in Salinas, which is maybe 23 miles from where I'm at in Carmel. But they brought me in. They really just surrounded me with love. And then all of a sudden, I'm like one of the elders. I'm in charge of the helps ministry, which is the ushers and greeters. I'm a part of the men's outreach ministry. So I've got a lot of moving parts right now. But I love what I do. I love being part of that church. My relationship is deeply personal with God. But you're right. It's all encompassing. I'm when I see folks who call themselves Christians and they dislike their fellow human being because of their skin color, their sexual orientation, that doesn't sit well with me. Because I do know that Jesus, they were just beating the smithereens out of him prior to, to being hung up on the cross. And he still loved everybody around him. So I'm like, if he can do that, why is it that we call ourselves Christians and we hate on our fellow human being? I don't understand that. And Alevo is so diverse. It has everybody, every shade, whatever life encompasses. That's my coworkers. And why would I think any less of them because of their sexual orientation or their faith or their skin color, where they're from? So I just have problems with that. Because if I'm going to call myself a Christian, I'm going to call myself a child of God. I got to love everybody. Now I can shake my head, but like, whoa, we got people that have issues out here, but
Yeah,
I
some
can't
people get
judge
on our
anybody.
nerves.
Oh, they do. They do. They do, Mookie. But at the end of the day, God was like, listen, remember Matthew 7 says, do not judge, lest ye shall be judged. So I take that to heart. And I try to be very careful, especially now, because it seems like there's so much acrimony and hatred in our country. When I was speaking this morning up in San Jose to the veterans, a veteran said, hey, when Clinton was president, he would have lunch with, Tip O'Neill, and all these different politicians were together. They might be one's a Republican or Democrat, but they can come together and break bread, Mookie. They can't even do that now. I'm not understanding, how we're operating, but my little part here in this universe is everybody's all encompassing with me. I'm not going to turn my back on anybody because of their choices that they made. And I don't understand how people can say they're a Christian and then wave their caste out and say, oh, we can't have these people. We can't do this. We can't do that. That just doesn't cut it with me.
Yeah, I think this is wonderful. My last guest on No Hair All Heart was Ellie Winkler, and he is an Orthodox Jewish gay man. And he is with an organization called Eshel, and they're all about inclusivity, that they believe, and part of their belief is accepting everybody, right? It's just, it doesn't matter. It's like he likened it to whether or not you ate a cheeseburger or what kind of ice cream you like. Who cares, right? If you're in there to win it, then it's all about inclusivity, acceptance, non-judgment. And here's the thing that I'm taking away from you. It's like you got to give to get. And if you want to get yourself spirituality and value and a purpose, then you don't get that by taking, you get that by giving. And it sounds like that's really what your whole life has become, which is giving 100%. Back. Right. 100%. And you've got so many diverse experiences that you can give back. Military discipline, the performance and fun of your wrestling career, the discipline and focus of even being the private eye, the ability to share and communicate and tell stories in terms of your lecturing. And then, your rapture in terms of realizing that you can't just focus on yourself. You got to focus on others. and how that's made your life. See, it's made your life awesome in this process.
But I still get mocked for that. I mean, people still say, "Oh, you got to take care of yourself first." I get that part, Mookie. I mean, I know I got to keep track of my
You're still
health and
pumping.
everything, but
You're buff. You're looking good.
I feel good. I do. I mean, I'm still benching 220 for 8, 9 reps. So I'll be 65 on Christmas. One thing I wanted to say to you too, you're from New York. The greatest thing happened last New Year's Eve. I was back home to Pittsburgh, and I found out that one of the billboards in Times Square was going to show my book trailer. So Mookie, I left Pittsburgh on New Year's Eve and flew up to New York. My cousin Julia is a retired NYPD. And so her and her daughter came in from the Bronx and they met me, and we were going to go we were going to go walk over to near the Marriott Marquis, a little bit further down, to see the commercial
By Times Square.
Yes. And at first I didn't think I was going to be able to make it. My cousin was running late. She was like, "Sy, have faith, brother. Well, I'm going to get you in there." I got my retired creds, and she got myself and her daughter there. And I watched it, and the commercial ran for like 12, 13 seconds. And it was so good to get back to New York. I love New York, and I've been all over the world. New York is one of my top 5 cities. I landed, and I asked the guy for where the hotel shuttle was, and he's giving me the business. I'm like, "You don't get this in California." I'm like, "Thank you, sir." And then he starts laughing. I'm like, "You're giving me the business. I missed that."
In New York, if they say "F you," that's hello. That's it's like "F
It
you,"
is.
and you're like, "All right,"
I miss that. I miss that of New York. I really do.
Right. So that's a
Well,
great
that was a dream
opportunity.
come
So
true to be there. And we got out of there just in time because it played. There was so many people, Mookie. And then so I took my cousin and her daughter. We found a nice little Italian restaurant. And as soon as I got my Uber to go back out towards JFK, the skies had opened up. And so we were so blessed that we were there before it was a horrible thunderstorm that New Year's Eve night last year. But it was so good to get back to New York. I love New York City. It'll always have a special place in my heart, man.
that's a crazy town, but never a dull moment. And it's great for your book to be showcased. So tell us a little bit about your book, just as a close. Is it essentially what you shared with us on the pod today, Veterans Day? Tells your story, tells what you've learned. Yeah. Okay.
I talk about my, about the relationships and how I got to the point where I had that pistol in my mouth, and then what happened after it. So, Out of the Storm is available hardcover, paperback, ebook, audiobook. It's available in Mandarin. It's available in Italian, French, and Spanish. So it's a global book. And I'm finding, the sales are okay, but I do see some occasional sales pop up in these other countries
Well, we'll
where
do
these
our
other.
best to get the word out for you. And who publishes it? Did you self-publish it?
I'm self-published.
Yeah. So
I am
where is the
self-published.
book available? Is it on Amazon?
It's on Amazon. I think you can get the ebook there. I think the audiobook is available where you can get the audiobooks at.
On
It's
Audible.
available
All
in
right.
Barnes and
And
Nobles.
who did
Yeah,
the
Google.
do you read the book? Are you reading your own story?
Oh yeah. Now the audiobook is done by a voiceover. It's a voice actor does the
Oh,
audiobook.
okay. So you did a professional audiobook reading
Yes.
of
Yeah, I have
Out of
that
the
done.
Storm. Okay. All
But
right.
everything is written by me.
Yeah. I was just curious. I published a science fiction novel, and I think I'm gonna do the voice. I'm
Are
just gonna
you?
wing it.
Yeah, some people told me to do the voice, but I'm like, I'm tired. I don't want to do the voice.
Yeah.
I'll
But
get somebody else.
you got such an effusive voice. There's a lot of energy and excitement and enthusiasm in your voice, and a lot of energy. So I could see you definitely reading from it and talking about it as you have been.
Yeah, one of my PR reps was like, "You should do it," but I was like, at that point, it was tiresome, Mookie, trying to get
It's
the book
hard.
out.
You got to sit
It
there
really
for a
is.
while.
And
Yeah.
I had no energy to be the narrator for it. So we found a good person he does voiceovers and that. And I think he did a really good job at it. So yeah, it's available wherever books are sold.
We're going to put a link to get the book and the audio book in the podcast description.
You got it.
And we're going to share some information about, your awesome organization now with the counseling and the coaching for the kid for supplemental public schools, right?
Yeah.
And
yes.
A little bio of you. And I'll include a summary of our conversation. And our podcast is going to be available wherever you can find your podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts. And I will post the video on YouTube as well. And I'll cut some clips of the greatest hits of Chaplain Sy Alli, a.k.a.
the chocolate Playboy.
Sy Youngblood. That is awesome. I have to thank you so much. I have had a wonderful time. You've inspired me too, because there's many parallels in my life where I have had my own revelations about literally just taking my bald head out of my own ass and giving back to the world, giving back to family, giving back to people, and really making people feel better about themselves. It's not just about us. It's about our community. It's creating a sense of community, nurturing it.
Yes.
And when you reach our ripe ages, when you crack 60, you got a lot of life experiences. You've gone through a lot, just as you've illustrated. And you have a lot of lessons that you could share to young people to hopefully so they don't have to make the same mistakes that we made, right?
That's the goal. That is the goal, to make sure that they don't take the routes we took. Yeah, for sure.
Right. You're the best, Sy. Thanks so much. We wish you great luck with the book, and we're going to help promote it for you. And feel free share this with your minions. And even your kids to get them inspired.
Mookie, I enjoyed it. I could sit and talk with you all night. I mean, this was awesome. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
It's been wonderful. Take care. And let's follow up maybe 6 months in a year, see how you're doing. That would be a really
I got another book that's hopefully coming out next year called The Corporate Smoke Jumper. That's about my travels and protection. That's a Mission Impossible with National Geographic combined. So, yeah. When we launch that, I'd love to come back on and talk about
that. So you're continuing as an indie author.
Yes.
This is great.
I wasn't, but my editor was like, you can't just do one book. You got to do, once you do one, you got to do a couple. So they're pushing me for keep
pumping them out. Book. And then your chance for a Netflix miniseries is increasing with every release.
Yes.
I'm gonna be, when your Netflix miniseries comes out, I'm gonna do the first one with the popcorn. And I love it. And my big old iPad, I'm gonna be checking that out. You're gonna be streaming the Chaplain.
I might have to come down to Orange County. We can watch it together.
Right. You're the best. Take care. And Thanks, comment, share, folks. Spread the word. Out of the Storm by Chaplain Sy Alli. Do it.
All right.